Episode 23. I'm unappreciated. What do I do?
So appreciation is a sense of value where if I am not shown it, then my gauge of my self-worth goes down.
Feeling unappreciated is different to being unappreciated.
Good. The feeling that I crave the most is the feeling that I'm designed to give the best.
And I think when we become so focused on ourselves that we are so thinking about our feelings all the time, we then exclude how we can live out our purpose. We're just thinking, how can I feed myself? Hello everybody and welcome to another episode from the Winning Life TV. I'm Leanne Morgan.
And I'm Gareth Morgan.
And we're really happy to have you join us today.
Yes, we are.
For this episode 23. I feel like when we get to episode 50, we should do something really exciting.
Like a party.
Like a party. I mean,
yes.
Anything, something, a celebration, and we're almost halfway there. So that is good. We will have episode 50 before you know it. And
we're halfway there.
I don't think people need to hear that. Really don't, especially if you're tuning in.
I don't know the rest of the words, and I don't know why I'm singing in falsetto.
I think it's because Bon Jovi does in the song. So
oh, yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Does,
oh, right, fair enough.
Not like that.
So you're saying I'm like Bon Jovi?
No, he does it well. So, moving on.
Do you need a mullet? Do you have a mullet?
No.
Oh.
Dear me, we've only just begun. Oh, there's another song.
Oh.
We've only just begun. You don't have to do that one in falsetto. If anything, actually, Karen Carpenter had quite a low voice.
Ah.
So there you
Carpenters,
go.
yeah.
The Carpenters.
Wow,
indeed.
this is
Anyway,
like karaoke edition, so we better
need to
move on.
It's absolutely nothing to
If
do
you'd like a
with what we're talking
karaoke edition,
about.
maybe
No,
episode 50 should be a karaoke
definitely-
edition where everything that we say has to be linked to a song.
I guarantee
That'd be pretty good.
nobody would tune in.
I think everybody would tune in.
Well, we might have to wait and see.
Let us know. Let us know. Drop in the comments section if you think episode 50 should be a karaoke version of The Winning Life.
I'll be paying people not to vote. So here we go with episode 23. And the question is, I'm unappreciated. What do I do? I'm unappreciated. What do I do? Have you ever felt unappreciated?
I think the times whenever I felt unappreciated, it's usually because there's other stuff going on where I'm feeling like I'm lacking something. So I don't think I naturally suffer from it, but I think I have been there, but it's usually been when maybe I'm discouraged or disappointed about how everything else is going. And so it tends to be a little bit of it can be a bit of a pity party.
Oh, because I feel unappreciated on a regular basis.
Oh.
Not because people don't say...
Should I feel convicted right now?
No, because I think sometimes when you're a mum and running a house and those kinds of things, and like you said, it's not because people haven't appreciated you. I could just feel like, oh, I do all this and I'm just tired. And, you know, so, but that's not because you're not thankful and the kids are not thankful. Like you said, it's like what's going on inside of you. You're just not appreciating yourself.
Yeah, and also we talk about in the Winning Conversation, and we talk about in all of our coaching environments, the 6 soul appetites, don't we?
Yes.
You know, the things that we naturally crave and hunger for to fill that void. And we have 6 different soul appetites, and appreciation is one of them.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, so I have a starving, hangry soul, but usually it's for achievement more than appreciation. So just because my soul hunger for appreciation is low, it's higher in something else.
Yeah,
whereas yours might be higher for appreciation, but
higher,
lower for achievement, for instance. So again, you know, and having an awareness of this is so important because, as we'll talk about, if we can't manage our emotions and have that self-awareness of what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it, then those feelings are going to lead our decisions, and that is a dangerous place.
It is, because very often when I feel unappreciated, and like we said, it's not because people are not grateful, it's usually because I'm trying to get something from somebody by doing something for them. For example, you know, if I go out of my way to do something at home to make people feel I don't know, just comfortable or loved or whatever. It should be more.
And you do a lot.
Oh, thank you. See, I feel appreciated. He says, actually, you are very good at saying thank you all the time. But what it is I think I'll be doing that, and because it should be more about me and my act towards everybody in the home or the people that I'm doing things for, but I've made it about their response to what I do. And that's the key. So for any of you who have children, young, old, whatever, and I've been a child myself, and there's times now as an adult I look back and I think, I was so unappreciative of what my parents did for me. But if you have children, they won't always be thinking, oh, I'm so appreciative of what my family or, do for me. But really it isn't about that. It's about being consistent in doing the good things, regardless of the other people's response to it. So that's why sometimes I feel unappreciated, but it's not because of a lack of thanks. It's because of a lack inside of me.
And that's a good point, because the truth is if we place so much importance on receiving appreciation, which ultimately is value.
Yeah.
So appreciation is a sense of value where if I am not shown it, then my gauge of my self-worth goes down. So, and when I'm on kind of in the red zone, just like in your car, when you've got the petrol, then you're running out, your engine is on the dregs, as it were, of that fuel, then the more desperate you become for that appreciation, that value. But ultimately, that's an inconsistent way of having self-worth, and it's not a healthy way.
No,
there are stronger ways, which we'll talk about, and more effective and healthy ways, in fact the way that we're wired and designed to build self-worth. And so you mentioned there are different people at different stages of life. There are people with different levels of self-awareness. Some people are just not aware that they're not showing appreciation. Now it doesn't mean they shouldn't be challenged or they shouldn't be taught, or that is part of their growth journey. Absolutely. But again, what happens is it starts to affect the way we treat people. Yes. We resent people. Yeah. We almost put people in pecking orders, and whether consciously or subconsciously, because of the level of worth they're giving to us, which is completely the wrong way round of doing anything. And if you do that in a business, for instance, again, you will become inconsistent. In the way that you treat customers or clients. And so it's so important to understand that, appreciation is something that we do from the inside out, regardless of response.
And if you think about it, that's why I deliberately said I feel unappreciated all the time. Because feeling unappreciated is different to being unappreciated.
Good.
So I feel that on a regular basis because of my own stuff going on inside, but actually I am being appreciated all the time. How I interpret that is just purely what's going on inside of me. So that's why I was a little bit deliberate in what I said, is that people might have thought, oh, why did she say feeling unappreciated? Well, surely her family appreciate. But see, there's a difference between feeling unappreciated and actually, am I being unappreciated? No, I'm not.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think sometimes we have to, feelings are fine, as in they are important, we shouldn't ignore them, but they shouldn't lead us. And so, I often have feelings of unappreciation. I might feel that I'm insecure, I might feel worried, but that doesn't mean that those things are right. It's just I feel that way in the moment. So we have to look, and I have to look and go, in this moment I'm getting annoyed or frustrated because I've done a lot, for people and I'm not getting anything back. But really, is it that you're not getting anything back, or is it just you're looking for that to feed the part that only God can feed?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we'll dive in a minute into kind of some kind of keys and some principles that can really help us with this. How do we build that strong self-worth and in one sense that internal value of appreciation without relying upon external factors or people.
Yes.
But when it comes to a soul appetite, the thing that we always talk about, so whether it's appreciation, whether it's affection, achievement, whether it's that sense of attention, authority, whether it is assurance, then we need to understand that the feeling that I crave the most is the feeling that I'm designed to give the best. In other words, and this is where this actually, we don't want people right now to feel guilty. If right now you're realizing, oh my word, I'm I'm constantly affected by this issue of feeling unappreciated, and it puts me in a bad mood. It causes me to react, either internally resent or externally I flip out, whatever that might be. We want to challenge you, because actually that starving soul is an indication of your purpose.
True.
So your purpose, if your soul appetite is appreciation, then your purpose each day, your why, is to give appreciation.
Good.
Now, people mix up why with how. So people think, well, my why is my job. My why is, even to some extent, being a mum. And of course, they're huge roles and they are important, but they are how we outwork something. Yeah. What we're talking about here is emotion. Purpose is emotion. It is feeling useful and being useful. And so every day you have purpose because you have an opportunity to use your soul appetite to make people feel something.
Yeah, good.
And that is completely in your control. Now, what they do with it, that's, in one sense, that's not your business and it's out of your control. But each day, if you can find ways in which, okay, this is how today I am going to make somebody feel appreciated, valued, then do you know what? When your head hits the pillow at night, you will feel like your life has purpose.
And how many of us actually do that? Go out of our way to appreciate people. I'm grateful for the people that have, gone out of their way for me. So, to say thank you or we love you or whatever it might be. So how many times do we challenge ourselves with that? Just send somebody a text message, an email, go and knock on their door. You don't have to give them anything. You just have to say, I just want to say thank you for X, Y, and Z. And I think when we become so focused on ourselves that we are so thinking about our feelings all the time, we then exclude how we can live out our purpose. We're just thinking, how can I feed myself? Yeah. How can I feel appreciated? And let me tell you now, and this is purely from experience in other areas of soul appetites, whether, like I said, assurance is one of my main ones. You will never get it externally that way. And the more you go looking for it, the more you develop an insatiable desire for a soul appetite. So with appreciation, if I'm constantly looking to be appreciated and to feel appreciated, all I'm doing is feeding a monster. Literally, a monster that essentially cannot be satisfied because it is not being satisfied with the good things. But when you start to turn that round and you start to appreciate and look for ways to help other people or to appreciate other people, outdo yourself in your appreciation. Don't compare yourself to other people. Look at what, use yourself as your own measurement. I guarantee your soul appetite will be filled. You will actually no longer be thinking about, how can I feel appreciated? Because that is how God has designed us to be, always living from the inside out, outward focused. How can I help someone else? How can I feed somebody else before feeding me in that sense? And it works.
It does, because the more you give out of that feeling, so again, like you've said, appreciation could be actually saying the words, thank you for what you do, or thank you for who you are. So we can all do that and should, but appreciation can be an action. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an explicit, I appreciate you, but it can be an action towards somebody from a desire of appreciation, such as, I'm doing this, I'm making you a meal, I am, going the extra mile for a customer, I am helping somebody who is struggling right now, and I'm doing it because I want to show a value of them, that they are valuable. And so doing it from that point of giving is huge. And the proverb says the world of the generous gets larger and larger. In other words, the more you give out, the more you have. Yeah. But the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. So when you are trying to extract appreciation from the outside in, your world actually is getting smaller and smaller. Yeah. But if you keep giving out, your world will get bigger and bigger.
In every episode of the Winning Life podcast, you will hear Gareth and Leanne talk about the importance of getting a plan for your personal and professional life. That's why they have developed the MVP plan. When you develop your MVP plan, surprising opportunities and uncommon results follow. The MVP plan provides you with a clear structure to begin to see how your goals can turn into reality. Starting out with setting the goals, highlighting milestones, and planning individual tasks, you'll begin to see how the MVP plan is key to experiencing the results you've always wanted to have in order to make an impact in this world. Visit thewinninglife.tv today to get access to your plan and the steps on how to use it.
And there's so much joy in that. There is so much joy.
So much joy.
You know, we can learn a lot from children. I really believe that's why Jesus told us that we have to become like little children to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yep.
Because when you think about kids when they're small, they don't have a problem with this. Think, what child sits around going, I feel so unappreciated? But how often do they love to give? How often do they love to say thank you? And, you know, and I remember particularly there was one time when Reuben was younger, a lot younger, and I can't remember why, but he just wanted to say thank you to you and me for something, and he said, I'm going to make you a snack, I don't know if you remember this, to say thank you. And he sat us down and he got us like random things out the cupboard, like a packet of crisps and a biscuit, and I think there was like some fruit and a glass of juice, and he brought it on a tray, and he was just like, because I want to say thank you. Now the actual gift wasn't that great, you know, packet of crisps, you don't even like crisps, you know, but it was like he'd gone out of his way to just say, I don't know what to do, but I just want to say thank you and appreciate you. And I truly believe, you know, children, they don't always get it right, obviously they do get it wrong, but there's something key in childlike behaviour, not childish, childlike behaviour, of really thinking less about me and more about others. And you see that all the time in children. They just love to give and love to do things for other people, and the joy that is on their face when that happens. And that's how I think we need to be, less concerned about me, more concerned about others.
And I think what you've touched on there is the fact that the older we get, the more the symptom of sin affects us. Yeah. And if you go back to the Genesis story, Genesis 1-3, when Adam and Eve sinned, in other words, they fell short of God's standards, they disobeyed God, they violated his principle, then they became self-conscious. They realized that they were naked, their nakedness. And I was talking about this with one of our children the other day, because obviously we've recently got a dog, in case you haven't heard, if you've been on any of the other episodes. And we were talking about the fact that, I think it was Reuben who said, you know, does Woody, our dog, does he know that he's naked? And
did he really ask that?
He did really ask that. He said, wow. Does he not get embarrassed? And I said, well, number one, no.
He's got a lot of fur,
he has fur, and that is his coat. But also I said, it's evidence again that animals don't have spirits. In other words, they might have a soul. In other words, there's an emotional aspect to them, absolutely. But they don't have a spirit, because it's the spirit part that was affected by choosing to disconnect from God as creator and as master. And when man did that, that's when self-consciousness kicked in. That's why no animal is self-conscious.
No.
It's only human beings.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say that is because the older we get, the more self-conscious we are prone to becoming. And self-consciousness at its heart is about how I look and how I feel. So as a child, that hasn't fully kicked in. No. Now, we know children can be, you know, me-centered, you know, they want feeding, but that's more about kind of the natural basic human needs. Yeah. But really, you know, that's why they don't struggle to demonstrate appreciation or demonstrate affection, because actually the self-consciousness is at a low level, and it only grows over time through experience. And so at the heart of this is we have to make a shift between waking up each morning with the spotlight on ourselves, because that's where it is, how I feel and how I'm seen. And we have to make a decision, a conscious decision. Today is not about how I feel and how I look. It's about how others look and how
Yeah.
others feel.
Yeah.
And of course, as followers of Christ, it's about how God looks and how God feels as a result. And when we make that shift, it's quite literally like moving the spotlight off us and onto others. And that's like getting back to being a child again.
Yeah.
We when we have that spotlight on others, it's quite literally like the self-consciousness level goes down, because it's not about how I look. It's not about how I feel. It's about serving. It's about helping. And, it'd be a bit like right now if you were in your dressing gown, for instance, and, you weren't in a state that you would normally go out to meet the public.
Are you
but
saying
somebody
I don't always look wonderful
no,
in my dressing gown?
No, you do.
I think it would be perfectly acceptable.
Well,
I wake up like
I
this.
see more and more people these days out in their nightwear. It's quite an in thing, I think. But go with the analogy. But if somebody right now was outside, they desperately needed help, and you didn't have time to go and get changed, you wouldn't think twice. You'd be out there helping them. Why? Because it's not about how I look and feel. It's about what they need and how they're feeling right now. So that shift is really important. And so I think let's look at a couple of principles from the Bible that help us understand how we can make this shift. Because the great thing about the Bible is it's practical.
Yeah.
It's not just kind of a principle where I've got to get kind of scratch my head and think, well, how do I apply that in my everyday life? And so 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18, Leanne, I think is a really key passage, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because like you were saying there, when the older we get, the more we have learned behaviour, and we learn how to be self-conscious. We learn how to be grumpy. We learn how to, have all these things. And we also have experience that stacks up. So we might have experience where 9 times out of 10 we've been unappreciated. That one time that we were appreciated just falls by the wayside because we remember the 9. And so we have experience as we get older, wrongly, that we can go, oh, well, I'm unappreciated because look at X, Y, and Z.
It's like the grumpy old man syndrome, isn't it? Like the older you get.
Is that an actual thing?
Well, it's like, the older you get, you're like, oh, these young whippersnappers, look at them, they don't value anything these days.
So when you get grumpy old man syndrome, you suddenly change your accent and you have a backbite as well.
I don't know. That was just my impression of getting older and getting grumpier. But do you know what I mean? It's like you almost become, I don't know. It's just like you age in your spirit.
It's easier in a bad way to become grumpy because you're just giving in to the natural feeling of I'm unappreciated, I'm unloved, and it builds a wall around your heart and your spirit. But actually, the whole point there is that it doesn't matter how old you get in life, and we're getting older, really, we shouldn't be looking at the experience that stacks up that says I'm unappreciated. It should be looking at the experience that stacks up how much God appreciates and loves me. And that is our response to everything. Like you said in 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 16 to 18, rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances, even when you feel or even when you are completely unappreciated. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. So it's not just like it's a good idea, it's actually the will of God for you.
100%.
To rejoice always, not sometimes. Pray without ceasing, not occasionally, and we can talk about that in a second. And give thanks in all circumstances.
It's absolute. There's no wriggle room.
Always
there's no
ceasing
but.
in all.
You don't know how I've been treated. You don't know this. What's really, I think this answers the 2 key important questions, which is, who am I doing this for? And why am I doing it?
Yeah.
So it's about the shifting the spotlight. How do I shift the spotlight off me and making myself look good and feel good, which ultimately, as you've said, just creates an insatiable desire that can never be fulfilled. But the way we shift that is saying, okay, today, who is this for? Why am I doing it? And it's amazing. You can be in a job or in a situation or role or have some responsibility that right now you've fallen out of love with. But I often believe that people jump between jobs and roles and responsibilities because they think by jumping to another one, it's going to somehow deal with that feeling. But actually, sometimes it's not about the job or the role itself. It's about the lens through which you're seeing that job.
Yeah.
And the way we change that lens is saying, do you know what, today, this role and responsibility, if it's hard work, if it's challenging, if there's a lack of appreciation from around me, well, who am I doing this for? And why am I doing it? And when you apply this principle of this verse, well, rejoice always. I'm gonna rejoice. I'm gonna just be in a state of joy, which is saying I get to do this. So actually say out loud, I have to go and do this today, because that means I'm enslaved. That means I'm in bondage. No, I get to do this today for, and whoever it's for, and obviously we'll talk about in the moment, where it says in the Bible, to do everything as unto God. So ultimately you're doing it for him. If you're a follower of Christ, then it's about who are you trying to serve through what you're doing, because there's somebody that you're serving in what you're doing, and that's who you're doing it for, and why you're doing it is to help them feel. And then that's where you can look at your soul appetite. If it's appreciation, right, I'm going to help them feel appreciation. Or if it's achievement, I'm going to help people feel like they're progressing and growing. Or if it's affection, I'm going to help them feel like they're needed and that they're loved. So again, this whole passage here of these three things: rejoice always, pray without ceasing. Again, what's that about? I believe that's about constantly asking God to help us to operate in his strength, because let's face it, there are times when we don't want to do it or we don't feel like doing it, but in that moment I need to die to self and say, God, help me right now to do this for you, and why I'm doing it is to serve these people and to give thanks. Give thanks, and as you give thanks, it completely alters your state. And it says this is the will of God. So many people are thinking the will of God is, well, is it this job the will of God for my life? Is it this role? Well, actually, the will of God is more about the state of heart and the motive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember reading those verses, when I was younger and throughout my whole life, thinking, pray without ceasing. How on earth do you do that? I've got to go to school. I've got to do these different things. I can't just pray constantly. But it begs the question, what do you think prayer is? Because if prayer for you is simply, and it is this, but it's not exclusively this, on your knees, talking out loud, asking God for things that you want, or praying for people, prayer is so much more than that. It is your literal internal conversation with God. When I love to watch like police dramas and that kind of thing, and I love when they're going in secretly, they're in disguise, and they have like the little earpiece and they can hear the whole conversation, and it's brilliant. I love all those things. But I often like to think that that's a bit like my relationship with God. I have this, it's not a physical earpiece that I can hear God, but internally I've got this constant connection with the kind of headquarters of what's going on. I can hear I'm being instructed to go or to stay or to move or to not move, or what's going on, and that is prayer. So when it says pray without ceasing, I can do that all the time, even in those moments when I'm so unappreciated, whether that be at work, whether I'm at home. And like I said, you might feel it or you might actually be it. Regardless, it has to be a case of I'm talking to God, I'm praying without ceasing. My communication is coming from him, not my soul, my mind telling me that I'm unappreciated, but actually it's coming from him telling me that he appreciates me. He sees what I do. He sees every good deed. He sees it. And ultimately, he's the one who rewards. He's the one that says, well done, good and faithful servant. Not your wife, not your husband, not your boss, not your children, not your neighbour. It's him. Yeah. So everything should be done for him, because that's the only way you'll get complete satisfaction.
Absolutely. And Colossians 3:16 gives us the clue of what you're talking about there, about, how do you do something without ceasing? How do you do something continuously and do other things at the same time? Well, there are times when, our whole activity is about that thing, such as prayer. But there are times when that activity becomes almost in the backdrop. It's almost in the engine room. It's in the subconscious part of our lives. And Colossians 3:16 says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another with all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. In other words, that's about immersion. It's immersion. So if right now you'll be the kind of person, because you're a human being, where if you've heard a catchy tune, you'll be singing that tune consciously and probably subconsciously throughout the day. Why? Because you've probably been immersed in that tune. Okay, it may not have been long, because if it's a very catchy tune, you've caught it. Okay, but you'll be singing it and humming it, and that's almost like that constant meditation on that tune. Why? Because it's come through immersion. There are multiple things that you will do today that you will do because you were immersed in either witnessing that activity or it's become habitual. So again, this is about immersion. And what that passage there talks about is when we immerse ourselves in God's word, when we immerse ourselves in worshiping God, in praising him, in those moments while we're waiting in a queue, in those moments when we walk into work and we just say, God, you're here, lead me and help me today. Yeah. It's just those little moments where it creates immersion. And then it goes on to say, and whatever you do in word or deed, do everything, again, absolute, in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. So again, who I'm doing it for, God the Father, and why I'm doing it for his glory and praise. So again, there's a real key here of immersion is so important. Immerse yourself in value, make the decision to demonstrate and declare value to others. And you know what? You will not feel unappreciated.
That's amazing. That's a great challenge for us to take away today, in your situation, wherever it might be, at home, at work, with your family, with friends, whatever situation that might be, look for ways to actively appreciate someone else, but also to say, God, I'm doing this for you. This is for you. Live for an audience of one, and that is God, because he sees everything that we do. It's been a great conversation.
Absolutely. Go show some appreciation today.
I appreciate
Declare
you.
it. Thank you.
That's
and you too. And demonstrate it as well.
Absolutely.
Glass of water?
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
We hope that you enjoyed that episode. And if you enjoyed it, please go and subscribe over on all of our channels on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and not forgetting your favorite podcast platform. And if you head over to thewinninglife.tv, you'll be able to find all the resources available to you. Gareth has written several books which will help you on your discovery to building stronger and better lives. Come and join us for the next episode.